I'm writing you this letter from a distant land. Its name is Siberia. For most of us, that name suggests nothing but a frozen devil's island. And for the Tsarist General Andreevich, it was the biggest vacant lot in the world. Fortunately, there are more things on heaven and earth than any general, Siberian or not, has ever dreamed of. As I write, I let my eyes stray along the edge of a grove of birch trees, and I remember that in Russian, their name is a word of love, Berioska. This might be autumn in Yorkshire or Connecticut if it weren't for these telegraph workers, booted like Mikhail Strogoff, going through the motions of shoemakers at the altitude of tightrope walkers. They convince you that you're looking at Siberia. And it's not just the local color, the boots, the fur caps, and the peppermint collars around their horses' necks. It's the realization, for example, that if one of these climbing Cossacks absent-mindedly reeled in his line, he'd find himself holding a ball of wire 4,800 miles long. This gash in the forest means a city has gone by like a wild animal. Follow the wrong trail and you may come to a bear or a tiger. Follow the right one and you'll come to a city. Angorsk, 180 miles from the railroad. The city was planned in 1947, but it took 4 years to cut a path through the forest, yard by yard, to reach the Trans-Siberian. The foundation stone was laid in 1951. Today it has 100,000 inhabitants, including the 35,000 children born during construction, natives of a city which didn't yet exist. When you've left the last house behind you, though, you're back in the Stone Age forest, the taiga. I'm writing you this letter from the edge of the world. According to a Siberian proverb, the forest was made by the devil. The devil did a good job. His forest is as big as the United States of America. But maybe the devil made the United States, too. When he's not busy making forests or states, the devil steals people's souls. Or at least that was how the Siberians regarded death for many centuries. In this frozen ground, corpses never rot. In these graves, which rest on foundations of ice, life and death are separated by nothing more substantial than a breath of air. Bring back the breath, and the body is ready to live again, to come back and share in the slow, chilly existence of the wooden villages, rounding up stray horses, building snowplows, or leading herds on their pilgrimage to milder pastures. This morning I saw a kolkhoz of ducks. The duck is collectivistic by nature. There are no kulaks among ducks. It was a cold morning, but out of sympathy for the cameraman and to promote friendship between peoples, they gladly gave an exhibition of naval maneuvers on the freezing water at the risk of being trapped in the ice, which was the sad fate of a bigger, more famous, and much rarer animal in this same part of the world, the mammoth. The mammoth elephants of old Siberia dreamt of a holiday in Iberia, fleeing the yuccas and the knout. Quite a few got lost en route. 30 centuries later, we had to dig them out. Oddly enough, the only animal which the Siberians and the Chinese could conceive to be related to the mammoth was the mole. They were convinced that he was one of the giant variety, digging huge tunnels and humping the earth with his forehead. That imposing animal's weak spot was his extreme sensibility to sunshine. If he was struck by a single ray of light, he died instantly. And the proof of this, said the Chinese, who were strong on logic, was that whenever you met a mammoth in the open, it was dead. Hence the Chinese word for mammoth, chu mu, which means mother of mice. For Westerners, the mammoth raised other problems. They knew what he looked like. He'd had his portrait painted by some of the most popular artists of prehistoric times. His publicity agent was Father Braille. And anyway, mammoths had always been on good terms with the church. A mammoth's tooth attributed to St. Christophorus was worshipped in Valencia. And as late as 1789, a mammoth's thigh bone, presumed to have come from St. Vincent's own skeleton, was still carried in the Saints' Day procession. When the first mammoths were discovered in the 18th century, the effect on public opinion was unspectacular. It wasn't until 1900 that the mammoth became wildly fashionable, after hardy pioneers had made forays into the Siberian wasteland and brought back quick frozen mammoths in the flesh. Men of science in that rugged clime had to be sturdy and still in their prime. They had to speak Yakut loud and clear. They had to banish all doubt and fear in order to bring back a mammoth by the ear. Mammoths generally appeared after a landslide. By the time an expedition got there, it might have sunk back into the ground again. Or been eaten by wild animals. Several skeletons were found, however, and even some well-preserved meat. Between 1707 and 1908, 18 mammoths and 6 frozen rhinoceroses were found. It was in the faint hope of bringing back at least an incisor that we made the trek to the nearest diggings on the banks of the great Siberian river, the Lena. Liena, Siena, 5 times as long as the Seine and 50 times as wide, the Lena, in Russian, is kind enough to rhyme with our French river in Latin. So just picture to yourselves a huge lazy Seine, like an assembly line running backwards, gradually coming to pieces at each new dollhouse settlement until it reaches its destination somewhere up north, broken down into its component parts and spread out over an estuary 120 miles wide. It's the only highway in this land without highways. It's Main Street in the Siberian village. It's the road everybody uses. And by the side of the road, asleep under tarpaulins, waiting for transportation, there are city buses, bulldozers, farm machinery, statues of Lenin for culture parks, rocket mock-ups for planetariums, imitation jeeps, and genuine pobiedas. Not to mention the crates of furs from various animals, such as the sable, a nasty little beast that would make you like furs, or the Arctic fox, a sweet little thing that would make you prefer nylon.
Зачем тебе в ковчег было пробираться? Прошу капитана, придется превращаться. Орел величавый с орлиным полетом. Когда ты придешь, видны твои носки. Козляткам ты страх они же тебя лучше. Чего тебе кричать, все чур меня, да чур меня, чур меня, да чур меня.
I'm writing you this letter from the land of childhood. Between the ages of 5 and 10, this is where we were chased by wolves, blinded by Tatars, and carried away on the Trans-Siberian Express with our pistols and our jewelry. The Trans-Siberian is the longest railway in the world. It has carried away Anton Chekhov, Blaise Cendrars, and Armand Gatti. I felt obliged to gather them all together here, like sacred cows under a canopy of wild ducks, to watch romanticism plus electrification go by. It's 7 a.m. in Irkutsk, midnight in London, and 7 p.m. in New York. You're asleep or having dinner. I'm looking at the Irkutsk Dam, sitting on its own reflection like a station in outer space. The morning shift goes to work on the dam when the evening shift is coming off at Roots, and the night shift is going on at Bethlehem Steel. Big pressure cookers made out of erector sets loom through the fog, not yet moving. Here, across the river Angara, on the very spot where Mikhail Strogoff was surrounded by fire, they're building the biggest power plant in southern Siberia. While Angara fishermen are already catching their first fish, Tam's fishermen have already caught 10 in their dreams. And now here's the shot I've been waiting for, the shot you've all been waiting for, the shot no worthwhile film about a country in the process of transformation could possibly leave out. The contrast between the old and the new. On my right, the heavy-duty truck, 40 tons. On my left, the Tiljega, 240 pounds. The past and the future, tradition and progress, the Tiber and the Orontes, Philomena and Chloe. Take a good look, because I won't show them to you again. It's 1 minute past 7. A truck from Irkutsk makes the pontoons bob under the floating bridge, and at the same instant, a lorry honking its horn rouses 411 people out of a sound sleep in Liverpool. 4 turbines are already functioning. But the problem is not just to light Irkutsk. The problem is to electrify a whole district, which will constitute the base of operations for the conquest of those frozen wastes. This is where everything begins. The soil reclamation program, the increase in natural resources, and the resulting rise in the standard of living, but also the spiritual acquisitions that come after material transformations, the way nuts come after bolts, curiosity, contemplation, extended horizons, and culture. It's 2 minutes past 7. The pressure cookers start to move. They're real monsters, 100 feet tall. And naturally, there's a girl to go with each monster. She orders him around in monster language, and the monster obeys. It's easy to imagine a romance between the girl on the ground and the man in the crane. It would be nice to be a crane driver in Irkutsk and give your girlfriend a box of birthday chocolates as high as a house on the end of your hook. Now the dam site comes to life. Cars wend their way between the cranes like cats playing hide-and-seek in a railway depot. Overhead, the cranes stand aloof, alternately courteous and furious with one another, like a herd of dinosaurs. And the whole dam becomes a spectacular display, combining a Ferris wheel and a naval battle, and the Vili d'Este and a pinball machine. Back to the taiga. The rationalistic aspect of Siberia is that a hiker walking in a straight line is always sure to get lost in the forest. If he walks north long enough, his reward will be 2,250,000 square miles of tundra and ice flow that have to be conquered and transformed. But first they have to be studied. That's the job of Vladimir Melnikov, head of the Low Temperature Institute at Yakutsk. In this climate, winter temperatures can drop to 30 below zero, but it's not for sentimental reasons that Vladimir has an electric fan on his desk. In summer, they climb to 110. In Siberia, the weather jolts you, so do the roads. But cars are insanity when you've got a handy conveyance that suits the terrain to perfection. The reindeer. The entire economy of the Arctic peoples is based upon the reindeer. It serves as wheat, flax, rowboat, Christmas tree, medicine chest, and sacristan, all rolled into one. When gelded, it serves as a horse and is allowed to keep its beautiful satiny antlers, whereas the foolish males cut theirs to ribbons. You could go on praising reindeer forever. With those velvet handlebars and the way they have of kicking themselves along with their heels, they're the closest thing to a bicycle that God ever created. If I had the money, I'd shoot a spot commercial in their honor, and I'd run it between two showings, or better still, between two reels. The picture would break off suddenly, and you'd see something like this.
We interrupt this film not to sell you some new miracle product, but to remind you of an ancient, irreplaceable product to end all products: reindeer. They make fine pets. They're less of a nuisance than dogs, less intimidating than cats, less insidious than fleas. Reindeer are all these things and more. Are you dissatisfied with your car? Reindeer will transport you. Are you dissatisfied with your tailor? Reindeer will dress you. Are you dissatisfied with your doctor? Reindeer will look after your health. Are you dissatisfied with your interior? Reindeer will redecorate you. Are you dissatisfied with your destiny? Reindeer will bring you luck. And don't forget that for young and for old alike, reindeer are wholesome food, chock full of life-giving chlorophyll. Housewives of the world, wherever you may be, in Moscow, Rome, New York, Peking, or Paris. Beware of imitations such as moose or elk. Always ask for genuine reindeer.
We followed the reindeer to the Evenks camp. Evenks, as you all know, are Tungus's. Reindeer and Tungus's have always been associated, but it's a question whether Tungus's like reindeer because they're useful, or whether reindeer like Tungus's because they're light. For centuries, Tungus's and reindeer were nomads together, but now all that's changed. With the wisdom that would have done credit to King Solomon, they've been assigned home bases. They may not show up there for years on end, but they've nevertheless graduated from the dubious category of nomads into the respectable one of householders on the move. Having presented the head of the family with a plastic wallet, a gift which he appreciated all the more as the Arctic world suffers from a serious lack of Woolworth stores, we were treated to the ritual offering of freshly sawed-off reindeer antlers. But don't waste your pity. The operation hurts about as much as trimming fingernails. At least that's what we were told by the grandfather in Tanguz, by the father in bad Russian, and by the little boy in excellent Russian. For these children who have inherited their ancestors' bear hunting instincts, go to school and learn trades. This may be a bad sign for the future of bear hunting. As 103-year-old grandfather Innocenti says, bear hunting is for youngsters. When you're over 80, it begins to be dangerous. Because in the days when Innocenti hunted Mishka, the name these people give to every bear, as if there were only one, he was armed with a spear and nothing else. But Innocenti killed that single bear 85 times over. As for Mishka himself, I met him in Yakutsk. Actually, his name was Ushatik, which means little ears. Beneath a somewhat moth-eaten exterior, due to an overturned samovar when he was little, he was a jovial, rather talkative bear. Boris Sergeyevich found him in the taiga as a baby, and he'd been a member of the family ever since. He was cousin bear. After a breakfast of red berries, Ushatik the bear took his morning walk to Irkutsk. We went with him. Since you can never tell how a bear will react to a camera, we were offered the protection of an armed policeman. But since we're much more frightened of policemen than we are of bears, we politely declined. On our way, we attracted the attention of a group of pioneers who were thrilled to meet a film crew, and even more so when they found out that we were French. Here we met with all the ingredients of the Soviet citizens' incredible and rather touching admiration for our country. 1/4 French Revolution, 1/4 Zola's novels, 1/4 Comédie Française, 1/4 Secret Passion for Gay Paris, and 4/4 Yves Montand.
Задумчивый голос Монтана звучит на короткой волне, и ветки каштана, парижских каштанов, в окно заглянули ко мне, когда поет далекий друг, теплей и радостней становится вокруг, и сокращаются большие расстояния, когда поет хороший друг. Влюбленные кружатся пары, и молодость дружит с певцом, и музыке вторят большие бульвары с московским садовым кольцом. Quand on écoute l'ami lointain, de bonheur et de joie nous emplissons refrain, и сокращаются большие расстояния, когда поет далекий друг.
As I listened to this tribute to Yves Montand, I looked around me. Undeniable energy, enthusiasm, and the will to work. A faith that the future will be as bright as the past was dark. Huge gaps and a firm determination to fill them. While recording these images of the Yakutsk capital as objectively as possible, I frankly wondered whom they would satisfy. Because, of course, you can't describe the Soviet Union as anything but the workers' paradise, or as hell on earth. For example, Yakutsk, capital of the Yakutsk Autonomous Soviet Socialistic Republic, is a modern city in which comfortable buses made available to the population share the streets with powerful Zims, the pride of the Soviet automobile industry. In the joyful spirit of socialist emulation, happy Soviet workers, among them this picturesque denizen of the Arctic reaches, apply themselves to making Yakutsk an even better place to live. Or else, Yakutsk is a dark city with an evil reputation. The population is crammed into blood-colored buses, while the members of the privileged caste brazenly display the luxury of their Zims, a costly and uncomfortable car at best. Bending to the task like slaves, the miserable Soviet workers, among them the sinister-looking Asiatic, apply themselves to the primitive labor of grading with a drag beam. Or simply In Yakutsk, where modern houses are gradually replacing the dark, older sections, a bus less crowded than its London or New York equivalent at rush hour passes a Zim, an excellent car reserved for public utilities departments on account of its scarcity. With courage and tenacity under extremely difficult conditions, Soviet workers, among them this Yakut afflicted with an eye disorder, apply themselves to improving the appearance of their city, which could certainly use it. But objectivity isn't the answer either. It may not distort Siberian realities, but it does isolate them long enough to be appraised and consequently distorts them all the same. What counts is the drive and the variety. A walk through the streets of Yakutsk isn't going to make you understand Siberia. What you need might be an imaginary newsreel shot all over Siberia. I might screen it for you in the town's spanking new movie theater, and the commentary would be made up of those Siberian expressions that are already pictures in themselves. The season of dying water is winter. The ghost of the winter hare is snow with its foolhardy flakes. The gray ox that drank all the water in the valley is the frost, which leaves trapped, angry boats behind it. My newsreel would begin with these images of winter, the long white night that lasts half the year. A weather balloon would take you high over the Verkhoyansk Mountains, the coldest region on Earth, with a temperature of 92 degrees below zero and a population of 8,000. You'd see huge caterpillars carved out of pebbles by gold mining dredges. You'd see silver birches that look like owls' tracks in the snow. And then, as if someone had gathered up the forest in a giant sheaf, trunk against trunk, and sheared it off with cheese wire, you'd see Yakutsk planting its paving stones. You'd see a topsy-turvy world in which houses move to their tenants on sleds. And hunters take live animals into the forest and set them free. A year from now, the hunter of the streams will kill the beaver he's fondling today. A year ago, the trapper of the tundra was playing with the silver fox that he's going to snare. There's not much time to be sentimental over animals whose furs are a natural resource. For centuries past, the country's only one. Actually, there were others, though. Siberia has turned out to have been a poor man sleeping on a mattress stuffed with gold. The problem was how to get at the mattress. And now for the Siberian version of Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. Larisa Popugaeva is a parachute jumping geologist who was dropped into the middle of the taiga in the spring of 1954 to look for a blue layer. After 4 months spent enduring the unendurable, she made her strike, and they wound up with diamonds. The deposit is richer than any in South Africa. To look for gold, they drown the land. Before the dredges scoop up the ore and carry it away, a kind of firemen dressed like Nantucket whalers let fly at the soil with hoses. The real firemen are dressed like aviators. Because when there's a fire in Siberia, it's most likely to be the forest, that other great natural resource that's burning up. And when there's not enough rain to put it out, they make it rain firemen. To go from the forest to the factory, to go to the market, to school, or on a holiday, Siberians always take an airplane. With no competition from trucks or trains, these planes have lost all their glamour. They're like women in a world without men. They're just flying buses, except that they set you down in out-of-the-way places where you're advised to dress like a bear if you want to pass unnoticed. then I'd show you the Yakuts. Now, don't get the idea they're distant cousins of Nanook of the North. They've got their artists and surgeons, their writers and bards. In very ancient times, the wise Eli and the daughter of the mighty Omogoi joined in matrimony to produce the first Yakut. But most of all, I'd show you the spring festivals, when the dancers whirl, the curdled mare's milk flows freely, and the old shamanic poems are revived. Approach, O stallion of the steppes, and teach us. Come forth, magic bull of the universe, and answer. O spirits of the sun, who live on the 7 southern hills, O jealous mothers of light, let your 3 shadows stand tall and straight. And thou in the west, on thy mountain top, O Lord my Father, with thy dreadful strength, thy powerful neck, come forth with me. I'd show you the whirling dervishes of the spring thaw and the routed armies of winter retreating under insults, while the whole pagan people invents the resurrection. I'd show you reindeer coming down to meet the rising tide of warmth. And further north, the last days of winter, when the reindeer shows an athletic streak I'd forgotten to mention earlier. My imaginary newsreel would end here, with this Kentucky Derby in the looking-glass world, in which there are no losers, everybody wins a prize. The most treasured prize of all, undoubtedly being the return of summer and its companion, color.